Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And it's good to have everybody back in the studio. It's been a few weeks since we've all been on hand.
Yeah.
So that's how was your trip to the cabin in the woods?
It was so relaxing. Sometimes you just got to disconnect from the world and go out to a fishing resort, get into a nice cabin with its amazing Wi-Fi and direct TV,
and
enjoy the amenities of
reconnect.
We were just talking about yesterday on Tool Talk Radio, Walden's Henry David Thoreau's cabin in Walden Pond. I'm pretty sure that's not what Thoreau had in mind.
Yeah, did he read a bunch of horror novels to really freak himself out? But that's Alan.
Thoreau was a hack.
Brandon and his wife. That's how they celebrate their wedding anniversary.
Now, I warned you all. He's not relaxing. He's charging up. It's October. He comes back.
Well, it's about to be
glowing.
October.
Here's the thing.
He comes back ready for the next 2 months.
Right.
My wedding anniversary is on the fall equinox.
Oh, that's neat.
We go out to the woods. When I come back, I am fully charged for Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, through New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of all that, I got to help put on a con.
Yeah. Okay, good. Hey, whatever it takes, to get you firing on all cylinders.
I am prepped and ready to go, sir.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, one of the nice things about being over here on 98.1 The Max is that it's not out of brand. It's not off brand for us to talk about music sometimes. And today we're going to talk about a little bit about music, the dysfunctional.
Let's be honest. We may be geeks.
Yeah.
But nobody's geekier than, there's only one person geekier than music fans, and that's people who play fantasy football.
Sports fans are way more geeky than us. I stand by that. So we're going to talk about that. Today, however, we do want to pay tribute to Maggie Smith, who passed away at the age of 89. Harry Potter fans know her as Professor McGonagall. One of the best casting I'm sorry, in the Harry Potter movies, there wasn't always the best casting, but she epitomized Professor McGonagall.
There was literally nothing that you could put Maggie Smith in where she wouldn't absorb that role and do the greatest job ever.
But she had a pretty long career, Alan. I mean, she's not
70-something years, yes. Yeah. You might say that. I think her career started in Oxford in like 1952.
Wow.
Okay.
She hung out. Let's see. She won awards for Othello, and I can't imagine how she could win awards with Othello, considering she was playing against Michael Gambon, Derek Jacobi, and Sir Laurence Olivier. He was just Larry Olivier back then.
Oh, before he was okay.
But I mean, the woman's career was so good. She was knighted. So she became a dame or a dame, whichever you wish to pronounce it.
Is that what they do for the ladies? Yeah. They call them a dame?
Well, you don't become sir.
Madame.
You become...
a dame.
Okay.
Dame. There you go.
Which has a completely different introspective here on 98.1 The Max.
I would have never known that. That's cool to learn something.
She's noted for these things. I mean, she was talking... she was on the Graham Norton show back in like 2015, talking about winning her first nomination for an Oscar. And they were so intense in the scene. Olivier actually slapped her.
Really?
They
got into character.
They were so into the scene, and that is what really sold the, they were like, wow, they're really, the effects in this, how they pulled that off. And she went, no, Larry actually slapped me. And
really?
I'm like, ooh. So... And she was funny too. I mean, she wasn't always serious.
No, she
did a lot of comedies. I'm going to bring up Sister Act.
Yeah.
A big crossover for her to the States with Whoopi Goldberg and that whole crew singing and carrying on.
A classic film.
It is truly wonderful.
One thing that I learned with her passing is how many people that I know who never saw her in anything until they saw Hook. And then I realized how much younger most of my contemporaries are. I need older friends.
Hook's a great movie.
I've got the average balanced out for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I never watched Downton Abbey, but I saw my wife was watching it, and one day I walked in and I saw about a a minute of it, and she played somebody. Some rich person that she wanted something out of the. She wanted something. It was pouring rain, and then she was in this fancy car in the back, and she made the guy get out, stand in the rain, and do something to help. Couldn't have cared less about her poor driver.
Yes,
no.
Seemed like a real snob.
You don't ever cross Lady Crowley.
Okay, so she was a jerk in that one.
No, she really wasn't. She's
just a proper lady.
And she is the
utterly oblivious.
She is the most sarcastic individual in that whole show.
Okay.
It's great.
But, all right, for obscure movies that I totally loved her in, I got to look directly Brandon in the eye and go, Murder by Death.
Murder by Death. Oh.
Great title.
It's all right, so have you ever seen Murder by Death, Joe?
No.
I recommend it. All right, I know we give you grief about things like The Fifth Element and whatnot, but Murder by Death is a satirical look at your typical dime store, mystery, characters. And it's got Peter Falk in it. And,
you got me there. I love Peter Falk. Yeah.
Well, I had Peter Falk, I had Peter Sellers. Let's go with the fact that Truman Capote was, it was in charge of this whole mess.
Okay.
It was a great send up, and she and oh my gosh, who was she sitting there with? David Niven. And David Niven played the marvelous Dick and Dora Charleston, the proper British couple that kept avoided being murdered in the whole movie because they were so proper.
Well, you got to admire somebody like Maggie Smith, where you find what you're passionate about, you make a career out of it, and you work up till the end, right? I mean, she worked till
literally she was just doing interviews within the last couple of years.
I mean, she was the host of the little Hogwarts game show thing that they did.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, she was, well in her 80s and still hoofing it.
Busy.
Yeah. So she had a great run and lots of great work. So it's a good idea to get out there and go on her IMDb page.
Oh my gosh, it is so long.
And go check out some of her old movies. I have to check out Murder by Death now.
Yes,
that's pretty good.
Oh no, Joe, this is your movie.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, when we come back, this is going to be fun. We're going to all talk about the collapse of Jane's Addiction.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. It's like listening to wizards yodel in parcel tongue. The Geek Patrol is back.
I see what Max did there. And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we paid tribute to Maggie Smith, who passed away at the age of 89. Had a great run, a very impressive career, just a really cool lady all around. So, I appreciate one of the things we've said is it's one of the fun things about being on 98.1 The Max is it's very apropos for us occasionally to talk about music. And I was really I don't know if you guys are fans of Jane's Addiction. I really like a couple of their albums. They kind of came and went pretty quickly in the 90s, but I like a lot of their music. But they, even back in the day, they were kind of, I don't know what you'd say. Perry Farrell, he's the lead singer. He was an unstable individual. Let's just put it that. He was one of those prima donna, high maintenance. He probably did a lot of drugs. He probably, whatever. You never knew what you were going to get. But they tried to reunite for a tour. I will say they look pretty good. I mean, they look like they're in shape, ready to perform, and they were getting ready to launch a tour. And what happened was Perry Farrell was, now if you know about their music, obviously very loud anyway. That's their thing. But he was singing, and the guitar and the drums and everything. Apparently, people in the front row were shouting at him, saying, "We can't hear you." His vocals were being drowned out by the guitar and everything else being too loud. Well, he didn't like that, so he went over and attacked Dave Navarro, the guitar player, literally on stage, took a swing at him and screaming. This all seems totally preventable. What? It's okay. Am I wrong? The guitar player is not setting the volume, right? Isn't it those engineering people in the booth that need to be?
No, because in some of these cases, all that stuff's down there on stage, and pretty much anybody could touch it.
Okay, well, why don't you go? I remember Spinal Tap when they're playing and they're talking to each other, like they're playing the guitar and they're leaning in and they're discussing stuff. Why don't you just say, hey, they can't hear me, turn your volume down? Why does it have to escalate into violence? Because they canceled the tour. It's over. They canceled the concert.
Love him, hate him, leave him, whatever. Perry Farrell, due to the various things he's been through, has an instability. He's got a chemical imbalance that led to violence instead of logically going, hey, can we get some volume control over here?
There's got to be something. I don't know if he was drunk. I'm
going to say, that should have all been handled in the sound check.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
That should have all been handled before the sound check.
I agree.
As a soundboard technician, I will tell you that there are script sheets for each song as to who is supposed to be set where. And one of the great scandals in music a million years ago was Paul McCartney and Wings, because they would turn Linda's microphone off.
Oh.
Well,
okay.
Well, it doesn't matter, but that was the big thing, was that if you were really a music aficionado and you could pick out the voices and stuff, you never heard certain things. So it led to kind of a scandal as to what were you hearing or not hearing.
I was just gonna say, let's be honest. It's Wings. It's a bunch of jerks.
Well, that's nice, but I guess what I'm wondering.
Well, Milli Vanilli was another huge
Can we talk
case
about?
here.
Okay,
no,
let's
but
not
this
get
is all
sidetracked.
But here's
but this is all related because
Milli Vanilli didn't even sing their own music. So I mean,
did they or didn't they?
No, they admitted they did.
Right,
well,
but the thing is that you had to, you have to know what volume goes into whatever, because when they're on stage, even Milli Vanilli are on the mic, but their mics are turned down and they're singing, but the volume is set so that the recording of the actual
studio recording is what you hear
playing well over it.
I feel like they could have addressed this in a lot of ways. They could have fixed this, and I'm just thinking
absolutely. But until one of us actually lives inside Perry Farrell's head, which sounds like a really scary place.
Yeah. Going.
And besides, Jane's Addiction sucked. I'm just gonna be honest. Porno for Pyros was his better band.
I don't know, man. I liked a lot of their.
The music speaks for itself.
Okay, but I guess the bigger question is, fans paid a lot of money. There's a lot of I wonder what it's going to cost these guys, because they canceled the tour. He had a hissy fit. He got carried away. And what is wrong with these guys?
Well,
there's a lot of bands like that.
There will be lawsuits. There will be
and he's
lost.
Since come out and he's taken full responsibility for it. He's talked about his mental illness and his problems with addiction, and that's pretty much it. The next time we hear that they're going to try and get together again, we're all going to go, well, we know where this is headed.
Well, that's the problem. It's like, think of what that does for your branding. They're not that old. They could, look at the Rolling Stone. They're still going. They could get anher 20 years out of this, this gig, but I don't know.
But at the cost of whom?
Well, I guess, I don't know.
It all comes down to the nostalgia behind it. The Rolling Stones never had to, after the late 70s, mid 80s, they never had to put out another brand new song. They could tour on what they had because of the love for the band.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's so many bands that are like that from that era that, can go out there, hit up and sell out, stadium arenas today with the same track. There's the rest of them, they're going for what would be a nostalgic cash grab, and that's what this was.
Well,
they were hoping that the people from the 90s who remember them had, enough money to buy for something that's not at a casino.
Yeah.
Well, there's bands that have done it. The thing that's annoying to me is, you guys know what a big fan I am of the Smiths, and they're being offered they're being offered $100 million to rejoin, get together. All the members of the band are still alive, and reunite and go on tour, and Johnny Marr is holding it up. It's not Morrissey this time, it's Johnny Marr. And I just wonder, I don't know, man.
I wonder what the conditions of that $100 million are.
Yeah.
Because somebody putting up any money, I don't care if it's $5,
Yeah.
wants to know how they're going to make their money back.
That's an interesting.
Nobody is going to write a check for $100 million to anybody unless they can make $101 million.
All right, that's a factor I didn't think about. So we'll speculate on that when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Surprise, you're dead!
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about I guess we're talking about behind-the-scenes drama that goes into bands. What we see, I guess what we see in public is not the full story.
No.
I do want to say one thing on that note real quick. I watched a really, and we'll discuss it another time, but if you're on Netflix and you want to watch an interesting documentary, I can't remember what it was called, but it was all about all these boy bands like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and the scams that promoter put together and cheated them out of all sorts of money. Like you thought those guys were rolling in money. They weren't.
No.
I'll have to look it up, whatever that was called. But
Interesting.
Anyway, it sort of ties in with what we're talking about because we were talking about the Jane's Addiction tour just coming to an abrupt stop when Perry Farrell attacked Dave Navarro on stage because his volume wasn't loud enough. An easily fixed problem. The guy didn't have to go off the handle. And Alan mentioned something before the break because I was saying that the Smiths are being offered a really big chunk of money, $100 million, if they will just reunite and go on tour. And Alan mentioned something I hadn't thought about. I was thinking of their personalities and how they have these creative differences and things like that. But really, you mentioned, well, who's putting up this $100 million and what do they expect out of this? And
They expect to make money.
And maybe Johnny Marr has a point of not joining up because that's the thing. I don't know. I mean,
I, at one point in a career, turned down a lucrative tour because I wasn't going to tolerate the terms.
Well, there you go.
Plain and simple. It's just kind of like, in Section D, the most important section to you is the deal breaker for me. Goodbye.
Okay.
Because it would have impacted my ability to do other things for decades.
Yeah.
And I just went, and we're not doing that.
I mean,
see ya.
I don't know if that's
without getting into too much detail. I mean, I've been in the situation. It's like I was making a good chunk of change to do just a little bit of radio every week, and when it came down to it, I walked when everybody else did, and I was the only one really getting paid.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably okay. Well, anyway, but
if anybody wants that
true.
story, find me at our next appearance.
But what you hear in public is that Johnny Marr and Morrissey have said too many nasty things to each other, and they can't overcome. That's the story. And I guess I just wonder, okay, if that is the story, why can't they just put their differences aside and do something for the fans? I guess that's,
I mean, I think you get to, if that's truly what it is, I think you do get to a certain point in your life where you're like, it's not worth, no amount of money is worth, like, letting go of this thing to me, and I don't want to put myself in a position. Like, if one of them feels like the other person hasn't changed, then, like, they're just going to get put in that position again, and now they're trapped in a contract and they can't leave, and then one of them is getting punched because
the fans are being punished. Though I mean,
I kind of have
the
wrench.
fans aren't entitled to them. I'm sorry.
I kind of have a wrench to throw in this machine in which tension can actually make a really good musical experience, and that's the entire album of Rumors. Rumors is literally built to be the breakup album because all the band members were breaking up with each other, and they were still able to make one of the greatest albums of all time with that.
Now,
in mind.
Yeah, but let's just be honest. The mental cases that made up Fleetwood Mac, that made perfect sense.
Yeah, but that's a good point, Mac. I didn't think of that because they sometimes negative things, and the Smiths are all dark and negative songs. So why couldn't they harness that tension and really put on unique performances?
But true. No, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Negative drama, negative trauma, in fact, leads to great art. But there comes a point where you have to choose: is my mental health at this stage in my life worth the fans for me to go out there and end up not being able to perform the way they want me to. So all they do is talk about how this farewell thing that they spent $1 billion on sucked.
I don't know.
Right. All they're gonna do once he's on stage is be like,
Last Jedi.
He can't dance. He can't dance the same way he used to dance. And it's like, yeah, because he's 60 years old.
Here you go,
Alyssa,
Joe.
please say again what you just said a minute ago.
They're old and they're tired of the drama. It's not the same
thank you.
anymore. It's not the same when you're 60. It's not that heartbreak and like, oh, me and my friend aren't getting along.
They look pretty good. You know,
It's
Alyssa,
not about
60-year-old, is not that old
but like
these
that's
days.
not. But that's no one wants to
It
make
is after
art.
40 years of listening to that BS. Yeah, it is.
He's like,
Okay, I'm
all
sorry.
my friends at home are nice to me.
I'm just going to say this.
and I get to sleep next to my wife every night. Why would I go back to that?
I'm going to put this in terms you'll understand, or that you'll appreciate. Okay, Elvis, I remember a famous quote of his. He goes, I'd give my fans the shirt off my back because they're the ones that gave it to me. And I think of when we organized the convention. You guys know this. 3 weeks before the convention, we're like, I'm never doing this again. This is way too much work.
3 weeks.
Well, I'm just
every
saying.
other week from one day to the next.
And then you meet people that had a really good time, and it was really special to them. And so we suffer a little bit to make things better for them. Well,
right.
if you became a multi-millionaire and you had all these opportunities in your life because your fans paid you to do it.
Enough?
What do you mean suffer? They owe us. I'm sorry.
No,
they don't. No,
In
they
fact,
don't.
we bought
They
the
owe
record.
you
that
nothing.
attitude is what is killing most of art nowadays.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
why
so
AI
sorry.
exists now, Joe, is because people think they're entitled to something.
I don't know. No, I don't think
If you
that's
go-
the same, man.
Yes, it's exactly the same. It's people who go,
It's
The
because,
kid-
well, if
I-
Morrissey's not going
the-
to go on tour, then I'll make an AI
the-
version that will.
yeah.
That's
Justin
exactly what will
Bieber didn't
happen.
talk badly enough about P. Diddy in his life, so I'm going to make an AI track where he disses him the whole time.
No.
It's entitled fans that lead to stuff like that. It leads to things like Chappell Roan having to come out multiple times talking about boundaries because there are people who show up at her dad's hospital her dad's at and things like that. There comes a point when us as fans need to realize these are human beings.
Yeah.
And we can want and want and want all day long, but we're not entitled to jack crap.
I don't know. We're asking them to put aside a few little ugly comments they made
And
on
you
Twitter
don't know.
against each
And
other
we don't
and
know the
grow
depth.
up.
Yes,
And
and
we
we
don't,
don't
we
know
don't
that.
know what happened, and we can all put on our CDs and listen to them in the greatest versions, or we can put on our vinyl and listen to them in the original versions and have just as good a time as we would at a concert where the tension leads to bad
Yeah,
performance.
sometimes the joy and the nostalgia is but sweeter than what it would be to see the reunion tour. Like, it's never going to live up to what we all think it will be, and you're just going to
Actually, that's a
it's going
pretty
to feel empty a little
That's a
bit,
pretty
I think.
profound observation from our youngest panelist.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have some parting thoughts when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
They are still coming through. This is impossible.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, among other things we've been discussing today is the Smiths are this close. Well, fans have been wanting them to reunite for decades and put aside their petty differences, go back on tour. They've been offered $100 million to reform and to come together and do a tour. And I would have thought Morrissey would be the guy to throw a wrench in this, but no, it's Johnny Marr. And before the break, I've been saying that basically I think the fans are entitled to this because they're the ones that gave them a career. And then, Alyssa, you made a good point. You said maybe this isn't going to be what we think it is. As a fan, maybe it's not going to be that great, and it's better to remember them as they were or something. So,
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to pick on one word you said.
okay.
You said
Entitled.
petty.
Oh.
$100 million, there's nothing petty about that.
I'm not talking about petty. I'm saying
You said they're petty differences.
They're
I'm
petty
telling you, their
differences.
differences
If it's not-
are now
it's
worth
worth
$100 million.
Well, that's exactly right.
There's
It's like,
nothing petty about that.
as far as I can tell, it's come from comments that, well, let's just face it. Morrissey is a controversial guy. He's gone all over the map. He offends people, but I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's a great singer, great songwriter,
All right.
and great artist. But And he's made little snipes at Johnny Marr in terms of just,
Okay.
but it seems minor. It seems like something you could get over and do something for the fans. But I don't know.
If he's standing on $100 million about it,
Yeah.
I think
All
it's
right.
probably
And
a
we
little
wonder
deeper
if
than
that could change. What if in 6 months they reach an agreement and say, you know what,
And what if
we've
in
heard your voice.
And what if in 6 months an asteroid slams into London?
Here-
And
Wait.
the moment in 6 months when they say, you know what, we can do this for the fans, then that just goes to prove how obnoxious the fans don't deserve it.
Okay, wait a minute. You just made me think of something. What if this
stop
is
thinking? We don't have that much time left.
What
in the
if
show.
this is all
the
a
hamster is dead, but the wheel is spinning?
Well, what if this is a negotiation tactic? What if Johnny Marr wants $150 million and this is like, okay,
good
we've
for him.
heard your voice, but and then so I don't know.
What if the person putting the money up is he's willing to give him $250 million, but it's Peter Thiel.
Who's
But they
that?
have to be on
Oh,
the
Peter Thiel is an alt-right guy who gives money to the Heritage Foundation for things like Project 2025.
Oh, okay. So
So if the money's
trying to
coming from
fund them.
a disreputable source,
so it's something that if they
Again.
don't like. Well, Alan mentioned it earlier. If you don't like the terms of what this $100 million, but I don't know. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to go on tour for the Pablo Escobar reunion tour.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, but then you said there's other bands that have done. They found a way around it. They say Hall and Oates don't even speak to each other. They go on stage. They perform. They go out different exits.
they don't. There is a restraining order.
Yeah, they don't perform
Daryl
together.
Hall has on John Oates. They don't tour, Joe. They don't do anything together anymore. I was talking about Aha, who don't talk to each other, but they still go out and do shows. But that's how they keep the drama down, is they don't associate outside of performing.
How do they
It was
practice?
like an arranged marriage, but for band people.
Well, I mean, that's
don't
the
know,
thing.
man.
Well, they go to work.
You go into the studio, you go to work, and then you go home. You don't hang out with your coworkers outside of what you have to do for work.
I don't know,
And that
man.
leads to no
But
drama.
Joe, I'm going to freely agree with Brandon. I'm going to say a terrible word, but fans are not entitled to anything.
We have fought against fan
You
entitlement.
deserve to get your money's worth.
So many episodes of this show.
Oh, you deserve to get your money's worth. I will freely tell you, you deserve to get your money's worth.
Yeah,
And if you think a creaky, sponsored by Depends tour of some band who's going to have Denture Cream and Preparation H in the swag suite, all right, no. Let me remember them as they were. And if they've moved on and done something new, great. I'll either embrace it or I won't. And I'll throw Robert Plant on that pile.
I was like, my dad said every time he's gone to like a concert in recent years of like a band he's really enjoyed in the past, he's like, it's too loud. I can't sit down. I only want to see the band I came to see, but there's all these other bands. Like, it's not the same. It's just not the same. It's too much. It's just better to listen to the music you love. Yeah. And I personally, all the bands that I like, I feel like I've gotten more than my money's worth from them in the content that they've given me. If they,
You know what's different for us, Alyssa, than it is for you is back in the day, we all know this, if you wanted to go see, I saw U2, I've said this many times, I saw U2 really good seats for $25 during the Joshua Tree tour. Well, okay, even if the concert stinks, I'm not invested.
Yeah.
When you invest literally $1,000 to go see a band, you expect a certain experience, and when you don't get that, you're bound to be let
Especially
down.
if you travel or like anything like that.
U2's another exception to the case and everything, and the fact that they still have really good chemistry together and that they're still touring and making music.
That's the bigger miracle, that they're still together and they're still friends. I mean, that's whether you like all their albums or not, at least you got to give them credit. I mean, they're close. They're approaching 50 years of being a band.
Well,
I don't know how
I
you
imagine
stick
being
together.
a band is like being in a marriage. It just takes a lot of work, and some people can do it, and some people can't.
Yeah, that's true. I just think there's a whole different. I will say I have a lot of respect for musicians. Making music seems to me a very unique type of art that is
It's
just
very vulnerable for sure.
yeah. You're putting your soul out there on stage,
Yeah.
and
And
people.
then someone's yelling at you that you're not loud enough, and you gotta punch your bandmate about it.
And
Yeah.
no matter how good you are, there's always that one guy in the back yelling, "You suck."
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I'm
Play
on.
some Skinner, man.
Oh,
Free bird.
oh.
I think I'm onto something, though. I think this is a marketing. I think this is a negotiating tactic, and I predict the Smiths are going to reunite, and go on tour for maybe more like 150
I
million.
predict
And
somebody's
I will
losing
take-
money.
Okay.
If the
all
Smiths
right.
go on tour again, I will take a shoey. We can post it on our socials.
All right. I don't know. Hey, you guys, before we get out of here, let's just remind people that the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention is November 23rd and 24th. You can get your tickets at memphiscfc.com. We're all excited about meeting Brandon Potter, our celebrity guest of honor. Shanks from One Piece. He's from many video games, and of course, he plays Quintus from The Chosen. Tickets are super affordable. It's a good time to get them. Like we said, at memphiscfc.com. So, all right. Well, it was fun to talk about music for a change, and I'm going to still keep my eye on that tour, but we're out of time, you guys. We got to get out of here. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Alan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
I'm Alyssa Diggs.
And I am Brandon Olmstead, giving all the props to Perry Farrell for living out the dream of many young upstart tattoo artists.